Imagine a world where the divine and the human collide in the most dramatic of ways. A world where a people, once free, find themselves in chains, and a God once silent speaks with a thunderous voice. This is the world of the Exodus, a story so powerful that it has shaped the identity of an entire people for millennia. At the heart of this tale is the concept of a strong hand, a phrase that resonates throughout the narrative, symbolizing the force necessary to break the bonds of slavery and forge a new destiny. But what does it mean to be liberated by a strong hand? And how does this divine intervention transform the very nature of freedom and identity? The story begins with the Israelites, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, living as slaves in Egypt. Their ancestors had once been promised a land of their own, a land flowing with milk and honey. But now they are reduced to a life of hard labor and oppression. The Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, sees the Israelites as a threat and imposes harsh conditions on them, turning their lives into a living hell. The cry of the Israelites rises to heaven, and God, who had been silent for generations, hears their groaning and decides to act. God appears to Moses, a man from the tribe of Levi, and charges him with the task of leading the Israelites to freedom. Moses, initially reluctant, is told that he will not be alone. God promises to be with him and to use a strong hand to compel Pharaoh to release the Israelites. This strong hand is not a metaphor for gentle persuasion, but a force of divine power that will manifest in miraculous ways. God will send plagues upon Egypt, each one more devastating than the last, until Pharaoh is left with no choice but to let the Israelites go. The first encounter between Moses and Pharaoh sets the tone for what is to come. Moses and his brother Aaron approach Pharaoh and deliver God's message. "Let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness." Pharaoh, arrogant and obstinate, refuses. He sees the Israelites as his property and is unwilling to part with them. This refusal triggers a series of events that will change the course of history. The plagues begin, and each one is a demonstration of God's strong hand. First, the Nile turns to blood. Then frogs infest the land, followed by lice, flies, and a pestilence that kills the livestock. The plagues escalate with hail, locusts, and darkness that can be felt. Each plague is a direct challenge to the gods of Egypt, showing that the God of the Israelites is more powerful than any other. Pharaoh, seeing the destruction wrought by these plagues, wavers in his resolve, but his heart is hardened, and he continues to refuse to let the Israelites go. The final plague, the most devastating of all, is the death of the firstborn. Every household in Egypt, from the palace to the poorest home, is struck by this tragedy, except those of the Israelites, who are protected by the blood of a lamb smeared on their doorposts. This act of divine judgment is the breaking point for Pharaoh. He finally agrees to let the Israelites go. But his decision is not one of compassion or understanding. It is a decision born out of fear and desperation, driven by the overwhelming force of God's strong hand. The Israelites leave Egypt in haste, carrying with them the memories of their oppression and the hope of a new beginning. The journey to the promised land is not easy. They face challenges and trials, but the memory of God's strong hand sustains them. The crossing of the Red Sea, where God parts the waters to allow the Israelites to pass while the Egyptian army is drowned, is the ultimate demonstration of God's power and the beginning of a new era for the Israelites. The concept of a strong hand is not just a reference to divine power. It is also a metaphor for the transformative nature of liberation. The Israelites are not simply freed from their physical bonds. They are also given a new identity as a people chosen by God. The Exodus is not just a story of escape. It is a story of transformation. The Israelites, once slaves, are now a free people, bound by a covenant with God and destined to inherit a land of their own. This transformation is not without its challenges. The Israelites, accustomed to a life of slavery, struggle with their newfound freedom. They grumble and complain, longing for the familiar, even if it means returning to Egypt. But God, through Moses, guides them, teaching them the ways of the wilderness and preparing them for the responsibilities of freedom. The journey to the promised land is a journey of faith, a journey that tests the limits of human endurance and the strength of a people's resolve. The story of the Exodus is not just a historical account. It is a profound theological statement. It speaks to the nature of God, the nature of freedom, and the nature of human identity. God, the story tells us, is a God of justice and compassion, a God who hears the cries of the oppressed and acts to set them free. Freedom, the story teaches, is not just the absence of chains, but the presence of a higher calling. And identity, the story shows, is not just a matter of heritage, but a matter of choice. A choice to embrace the covenant and the responsibilities that come with it. In the end, the Exodus is a story of hope. It is a story that tells us that even in the darkest of times, there is a God who will not abandon us, a God who will use a strong hand to break the chains of oppression and lead us to a land of freedom and promise. The journey may be long and difficult, but the destination is worth it. For in the end, it is not just the Israelites who are transformed by the Exodus. It is all those who hear their story and are inspired to seek their own freedom. And so, the story of the Exodus continues to resonate, a powerful reminder of the enduring power of faith, the transformative nature of liberation, and the unbreakable bond between a people and their God. The strong hand of God is not just a force of destruction. It is a force of creation, a force that shapes the destiny of a people and gives them a new beginning. The Exodus is a story of redemption, a story that tells us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come, and with it, the promise of a new day.